Welcome to Bets on the Future, where we highlight the various career paths in the electrifying metals world. From the vehicle you ride in to the bridge holding it up, metals are everywhere. Why not in your career too? I'm Jennifer Betts, a metals industry veteran with almost 20 years experience, here to highlight these incredible career paths as told by the women who are living them. Today is a first on Bets on the Future. We're joined by not only one, but two incredible women who have built up an organization from scratch, Women4Metals. Tanja Winter and Steffi Klein, along with several others from Aurubis, launched Women4Metals back in 2019 as a women's empowerment initiative in the metals industry. Both of today's guests are located out of the Hamburg, Germany location for Aurubis. Aurubis is a leading global provider of non-ferrous metals and one of the largest copper recyclers worldwide. Please welcome Tanja Winter, the Executive Director, Head of Sales for the Rod Division, and Steffi Klein, Senior Project Leader for Social Engagement from across the pond to Bets on the Future. Thank you to two of my first-time guests that will be dual interviews today. Normally on Bets on the Future, we have one individual telling us, their backstory, what they're working on, and today we are very lucky to have two very experienced individuals in the metals industry, Steffi Klein and Tanja Winter, both from Aurubis. And right before this, we were actually just talking about how did we even meet? Because spoiler alert, if you're unaware of who these two individuals are, I'm based in California and these two individuals are not. So
that's true.
We're making this a little bit more of an international episode today. So thank you both for hopping on. And Tanja, do you mind just doing a quick introduction on yourself?
Sure, it will be my pleasure. And thank you so much, Jennifer, for having us. It's such a great pleasure. And also the first time we are on a podcast that's recorded in LA across the pond and with quite a time difference. So yes, I think we got introduced because of our initiative Women4Metals and a great fan and supporter named Merrier. And she's traveling the world for this industry. And she said, hey, I met this wonderful woman, Jennifer, over in the US on an ISRI conference, if I'm not wrong.
Yep.
And you need to meet. You really need to meet. You have so much in common. And so that is how she hooked us up. And this is how we are meeting up here today, I guess.
It was kind of a crazy story. It was I didn't know Neri until this year, and because of some of my activity and her activity on LinkedIn and trying to expand our networks just in the metals world and specifically on more of the recycled material side of things, we met up at the ISRI conference in Nashville, had a lovely lunch in that area, and yeah, she's been a wonderful connector in the industry. So I really do thank her for the introduction.
So she had reached out, or you have had reached out to her before you met via LinkedIn, I assume,
yes.
or
yes,
very cool. Yeah, no, LinkedIn is such a great platform. Yeah. We realize that also very often to just connect with people and then at some point meet up in person.
Yes, exactly. One day, the three of us will actually be in the same room.
Hopefully.
Steffi, you're going to be in London next month, right? Because you're not based in London. Where are you based out of?
We are based in Hamburg, in Germany.
Okay. So, one of the things that, our introducer brought up was the work that you've been doing with or through Aurubis, I should say, but for Women4Metals, the organization that you both have started, if I get that correctly. I just kind of want to know a little bit more about how Women4Metals started. What is it? What are you working on? And learn a little bit more.
Yeah, let me maybe step in for the start, and then Steffi can take over for what we're currently working on. So in 2019, so 5 years ago, and before the pandemic, two colleagues of mine and I thought we needed to have a network of women, or let's say bringing women of the wonderful metals industry together. And for us on the copper side of life, where we are mostly focused on, not so much the recycling part, but the products part. and the primary site. They all meet up for LME Week, which always takes place in London in October. And so we said, let's have a tea time event. Let's invite women we know of this industry, bring them together, give them visibility, connect them so that maybe also in the future, we will not always have these panels full of men in all the different events. So that's what we did, really low budget, yeah. And it was a wonderful event. And then the pandemic started, which kicked us back a bit. We nevertheless conducted always on the Tuesday of LME Week a tea time, then 2 virtual sessions. And then last year was the first time again that we could have an in-person one in London. And this was also the start of making this initiative even bigger. So our vision is to be, with Women4Metals, an industry-wide initiative. So that is founded by us at Aurubis, but that opened its doors and to build the initiative last year in London to other organizations, associations, companies, or individuals. Yeah, and now we're just about to hit our this year's tea time,
Yes.
which takes place on October 10, again in London.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes out of the tea time. I don't believe I'll be able to make it over this year, but I do hope to get to London next year for LME Week. There's just been a little bit of travel recently amongst some US-based scrap conferences.
You had a lot, many conferences going on. I saw that. Yeah.
Yes.
But maybe let me just add one sentence I missed to mention, because what drove us to really do that was that I had a realization again that whenever we have open positions to be filled, and I'm a director of sales, so on the sales side, there's hardly any women applying. And then I realized, okay, sales is, at least in Germany, not really very female dominated, and the metals industry for sure is not. Yeah. And this all together made us think on how can we make sure that the public understands that the metals industry is a great place to work also for women.
I completely agree. I mean, it's exactly why I started this podcast, because I would look,
great match.
I would look online and, I know many women that are incredibly successful in the metals industry. And yet I would look online and I wouldn't see them on panels or speakers or, even just on my LinkedIn feed, right? And so I think what you're doing is really incredible, to give women the support, to also educate men on, the benefits of a more diverse workforce overall, and then also to give them that airtime on stage, right? And let me just preface, we've thrown out several acronyms throughout this podcast so far, but to help the individual who may be listening that's not as familiar with the metals world, LME is London Metal Exchange. It is a marketplace, I'll call it, where basically a lot of the main metals are traded. It's kind of like the stock market, if you will, for metals. So think aluminum, copper, nickel, etc. From a global perspective, this is how we figure out what the value of those metals are on a day-to-day and hour-to-hour basis. And the LME throws LME Week, which basically allows commodity traders, manufacturers, basically anyone that uses the metals to come into London for the week. And there's a lot of tea times, there are panels, there's discussions. It's really a great educational and networking time in the metals industry. So I really do appreciate what you're doing with the tea time. And as someone that is from the States, I love the British tea time concept. It just makes it a little bit more fun for me. So it's going to be wonderful to see what videos and what photos come out of the tea time this year.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, we are really looking forward to our tea time. I think in 2 weeks or 1.5 weeks. And it will be really exciting for us this year because, as Tanja already said, we opened last year our initiative for external organizations and associations, and then saying, okay, we are coming back 1 year later and present to you what we identified in the last months and how we shaped our network together. And so it's a really important next milestone for us because we are presenting our external supporter and membership packages during this tea time. And we have a wonderful panel during the tea time as well. And a lot of great women in this panel who are talking about initiatives in this industry, also female initiatives. And we would like to identify what we can learn from each other, best practice sharing, experiences they made. So I think a very great meeting point. And also, of course, we would like to network because we see networking, connecting is so important in this industry. And really looking forward.
It really is. I don't believe we covered on this during the section that we were recording this for the podcast, but I find it so interesting and wonderful that this initiative that you worked on started as an internal organization at Aurubis, right?
Yeah.
And it developed into this opportunity where you saw a need outside of Aurubis, and that Aurubis gave you the support to say, go for it, make this an industry-wide thing. We will support you.
Yeah, this is exactly what
absolutely
happened then, let's say a good year ago. Yeah. So, and that's when we could really, let's say, kick off much more. And with full forces, and this also since then Steffi has taken over the lead of the initiative, which is wonderful, because with her background of event management and social engagement, it's just a perfect fit, to, let's say, run the initiative as well. And then it's me supporting very much for the external world, because my main role in Aurubis, as I mentioned, is on the sales side, so the commercial side, so very much focused there. And another colleague of us, Laura, she's our director for HR development, and she's very much supporting and focusing on the internal development of Women4Metals within Aurubis, within our different sites, where we've now everywhere a local coordinator, how we name them, and make sure that we do best practice sharing within Aurubis, learning from each other, but also then in the external part of the initiative with other companies and individuals.
That's really incredible. I do know of some associations that exist out there, and their backstories are not similar to Women4Metals. I think it's very fascinating that an internal organization essentially was able to step outside, and then within 5 years of that organization even starting, that you are getting external sponsors. You're setting this up as essentially an external organization operating on its own to an extent, right? You have your own P&L, you have your own budget, right? And that you're opening this up to non-Aurubis members.
Yeah, because I have one of my favorite sayings is, the more the merrier. And we all, have very similar challenges. Yeah, we all, or many of us, share the same or similar visions and targets. And we want to, like you and us, we want to show how great this industry is. Yeah, and attract other people, and especially females, to come and join us. Yeah.
And as you said, it's so important to show these role models and to give role models who are already working in the companies more visibility, to give them more satisfaction on one side, and on the other side to attract more other women, because we know women attract women. And so it's so important to give them a face, to show them, to give them room, to show videos. And this is one of our goals for Women4Metals. So.
The organization Women in Manufacturing put out a study recently, which I would consider the metals industry part of the manufacturing world, that 30% of all of the individuals in the manufacturing space are females, and that by 2030, 35% will be female. And so what you're setting up now is a really important directive to help people understand the benefits of manufacturing, and specifically, obviously I'm biased, the metals industry. It seems to be more or less the backbone to everything in our societies. And so your timing could not be better. For those that are thinking about learning more about Women4Metals or signing up, what kind of options are there for them?
So we have a website, which is called women, then 4, the number 4, metals.com. So there you can find everything, and there you can also register if you're interested to be a supporter. And you will find all this information there.
Wonderful.
And
do
of
you
course,
have
very important is that, so we differentiate, of course, between companies and associations and also universities, that can become members, and individuals. So for individuals, of course, it's completely free of charge. We are coming out soon also with a collaboration platform, where we will then all, easier connect with each other and share information, open up discussions, or even just agree on meeting somewhere at one of these, conferences where anyway, several of us are going to.
And you will find
of
us
course,
on
sorry.
I want to say
LinkedIn, we have a group, that you can also access, and more to come.
And it's based out of Europe, correct? But I'm assuming membership is open to anyone around the world.
worldwide.
Definitely.
That's fantastic.
And we would love to have, of course, supporters in the US and everywhere. So that will be important. But maybe due to the nature of it and how it started, there's many German companies or a German association, for example, of metal traders and recyclers, with whom we've also already had one event in Germany, which was also a mixture of a panel and individual stories sharing, and also a workshop on the focus topics that we have created after we've been speaking with many interested companies on what their requirements are, what they would foresee for the initiative. And now the structure will also be based on these focus topics. And we will have strong partners who will be part of, probably it's going to be called advisory committee, and will also be chairing these, let's say, working groups on these focus topics, so that we really make sure, yes, it's an initiative founded by Aurubis, but it's actually really from the industry. And there we look into the primary side, we look into recycling, into trading, into products, and to have the diverse setup will be important for us. And of course, also we look for not only having Europeans or Germans, but would love to have that very international as well.
Well, you're setting it up pretty nicely, because I suspect you'll get more partners and more, individuals coming to Women4Metals from the States, because Aurubis, for those not familiar in the metals world, just made a pretty massive investment in the States. Do you mind just elaborating on what your company's been working on, and coming over across the pond, if you will?
Sure. Yes. It's very exciting for us, because it's the first greenfield project of Aurubis. And we broke ground in Richmond, or more concretely in Augusta, in Georgia, in June last year, for our secondary smelter. And it is an investment, meanwhile, of 640 million euros in the US. And we will treat 180,000 tons of complex recycling materials there. And it's going to be the first of its kind, over there in the US. So that these are indeed very, very exciting times. And Aurubis, is coming over with a substantial footprint.
It's really quite impressive what Aurubis is doing over in the States. And somebody brought this up the other day, that it didn't really, dawn on me. I've been on the scrap side of things, the recycled material side of things for the majority of my career. So I think my view is a little skewed. But Aurubis is not the only company recently, international company that has invested in the United States. And I find that very fascinating because the investments that you guys have been making in the States is similar to a lot of other companies where people are looking at the States as like the next frontier, if you will, almost like in terms of recycling opportunities, because we do have a lot of recycled materials available here, right? So instead of shipping out to other countries, companies like Aurubis is recognizing, well, why don't we just build the plant where the material is? And so it's pretty cool to see that more and more companies coming to the States and saying, we're going to set up shop here. We see this as a manufacturing opportunity.
Yeah, no, very much. I think the recycling market in the US, somehow it was maybe even overdue, that companies are stepping in to avoid all these, recycling flows overseas, which also is somehow maybe not the most sustainable way. So that should help on that. And then also I think the US really has some good programs, to pull investments into the country.
Yes. I don't know. And again, spoiler alert for behind the scenes, we had a little conversation before we hit, the record button on this. So I don't know at what point we talked about this, but for those that are unfamiliar with Aurubis, what do you do? What do you make? Like, how do you fit into the metals world and really ultimately translate into the everyday person?
Yeah, so Aurubis' core metal is copper. Yeah, but besides copper, we bring out 20 other metals and co-products, how we call them. We are also a very large producer of sulfuric acid, for example. And we run 6 smelters in Europe, and then the one in Richmond coming up, of course, in the future. And we also have some refinery, of course. So we produce cathodes, which is copper cathodes, which is the first, let's say, kind of product, and also traded at the earlier mentioned London Metal Exchange. And from out of our cathodes, we also produce copper products. For example, and this is what I am in charge for on the sales side, is wire rod. So we are a pretty large producer of wire rod in Europe with 4 sites in 3 countries. And besides that, we are among the largest recyclers of copper worldwide. Yeah, so of these 6 smelters that I mentioned, 2 of them are primary smelters. They are using concentrates, but they also use recycling materials. There's some cooling scrap, for example. And then we have 4 secondary smelters, where we treat recycling materials and secondary materials in general. Yeah.
Tanja,
so we do not own a mine. Yeah, we don't own a mine.
Yes,
that's important. But we are very integrated towards the fabricator side. Yeah,
I'm very curious, Tanja, in terms of how did you find the metals industry? Like, how did you find Aurubis? How did you get to the point of running the sales for this division? I'm always interested in the backstory.
Yeah, and then in many cases, what I've also heard in your podcast sessions before, it's somehow family connected. And this is also the case for me. I tend to say actually that copper runs through my veins. And this starts with my father starting in this industry in a fine wire producing company 18 days before I was born. Yeah. Oh. And then I started in this same company during my school holidays when I was 16 years old, just as a job. And I started in sales and marketing. My father has ever been in controlling, so this is not a perfect match maybe. And I've loved it from the very first day. And I had the opportunity, and that company's name is Berkenhoff, to even then continue doing studies with them together. And during these studies, my time at the university, I even went over to the States for an internship that I spent in New Jersey. And then through that, I got in touch with a company named Kemper, also, of course, in the metals industry. So from fine wire, I then changed over to the strips business, so meaning rolled products for connectors. And I was at that time in charge for the sales in the US for 10 years. So I came over many, many times during that time, and also for Asia. And also there, I loved it every day. And at some point, after 10 years with Kemper, I needed another surrounding and a new challenge. And then I figured out Hamburg could be a good place in the end. And also then Aurubis, very renowned in the copper industry, and especially also for copper products. And then I found my way to Aurubis, where I have been now for 8.5 years. And also here, every day has been, a positive adventure, mostly, with, zero boredom. I can assure you that. But of course, a much bigger company. And as I described, very, integrated on the copper value chain. So there is every day something new to learn. Yeah.
It really is. The industry is constantly changing, constantly having major events, constantly having, fluctuations in pricing and new consumers and, locations. And so it keeps it very interesting. I mean, here in the States, we have, very topical UAW strikes with the auto plants that are affecting some of the metal markets here in the States. And so, if you like news, if you like world events, if you like seeing what you do go into real life and having an effect on people, the metals industry is kind of that perfect combination.
Yeah. And we are part of any mega trend. If you're talking renewables, if you're talking digitalization, e-mobility, of course, urbanization. It's all about metals, and of course, particularly copper, which is a very nice metal, infinitely recyclable actually as well. And
And Steffi, I know you're struggling with a bit of a cold today. So in just a brief as much as you feel comfortable, I'm curious as to how you got into the metals industry.
Yeah, actually it was by accident. It was not a family-based background. It was a friend of me, but it was also a woman who influenced me. She was already working for this industry and for the company. And I was fascinated from the very first beginning. I'm here right now for 13 years. Also made some developments at Aurubis, and now working also for the field of social engagement at Aurubis, completely different than Tanja's work, but also really interesting, more related to the countries where our raw materials are coming from. So we are doing a lot of social projects in South America, in Peru and Chile. And since a few months or nearly over a year right now, responsible also for Women4Metals. Wonderful work together with Tanja and our other colleagues here. And always fascinating, always happening something new, and a great industry. And our big aim to attract more women for this great industry and show them what this industry is about.
And how many different jobs there are in this industry. I mean, you can be anything. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you just brought up two very different stories, very different backgrounds, very different roles within the same company, even. And that's really the key here. Steffi, you brought up another key point from a globalization. Once you get experience in the metals industry, you're not limited to your location because metals are everywhere. Tanja, you mentioned being able to travel to the States, traveling to Asia, throughout Europe, right? Being able to do that through work is pretty unique, right? That's pretty special. And also being able to see what your material is going into is pretty incredible.
Yeah. And nowadays also even more, and which I like to see, is of course the sustainability aspect, and how now even, with your customers of products, they start to think, okay, how can we recycle it? How can we, ensure a circular economy? And this is, wonderful. Yeah, it's gotten so purposeful also, you know, working in this industry. And this is something that I don't recall like that, let's say 25 years ago. Yeah. So, but the last years, I mean, it's so clear. Yeah. Sustainability, in Europe we have the Green Deal, and I know in the US we have a similar program now. Yeah, we need so much metals for that. And also we need to take care that then at the end of life and so on, we make sure that they are recycled properly. Yeah.
The investments that have been made in particularly the United States right now, because we have a huge demand for a lot of the lower footprint, a lot of the energy projects, etc. There was one company recently that basically just raised, it was either, I think it was $1 billion, and now their valuation is about $5 billion, just for recycling essentially EV batteries because of the metal content in there. Like, think about that for a second. That's mind-blowing, and that's just one company, right? Think about all the other metals that exist in products today. We've done a really great job, and again, biased from the States, in terms of recycling automobiles, right? ICE vehicles, internal combustion engines. We figured out that process, how to make sure that we really are recycling all of the vehicles. But now with the introduction of, a lot of projects that want lower carbon footprints and they want more technology, we're having to get a little bit more creative to make sure that we recycle existing metals to be able to keep up with demand. And it's great from a career perspective to be able to get in at this level right now.
Yes. Yeah. And like you mentioned, EV, I mean, this is the recycling of EV batteries. Yeah, it's like startups everywhere. Because everywhere. It's a completely new field. And we also have built a pilot line here in our Hamburg site for the black mass, and it's exciting projects.
Yes. For those that are interested in any of the topics that we've covered or interested in metals as a potential career, what advice would you give them to get started in this industry?
So you're referring to how to where to find a job, or more like once you're in the industry, once you've found that, how to, let's say, build your character traits, or how you deal in that industry?
I like both of those questions, actually.
Yeah. I think the first one is, of course, a bit tougher. It might be different in the different markets, let's say geographically. But on the other hand, I mean, then again, we are at LinkedIn, right? Yeah, follow us, join Women4Metals, and so on. Connect with others that are already in the industry and hear about their companies or associations or other places they work for. Follow the news on these companies, of course. I think that's always good. And then once you're starting in the industry, I would always say it's very important to be yourself, to be authentic, to have a hands-on mentality. I think helps in our industry. To also be adjustable, in the way on who do I have in front of me? Who am I speaking with? Because there's a broad scale from like very small, shops, family owned, or I mean, you don't have an idea which, companies I visited in India, for example. So somewhere in the backyard, and of course, with differences in working security, then we have them as standards in Europe or in the US for sure. But also then you're talking to multinational companies, their C-level. So that can be very exciting. But of course, it's important that you know how to deal with the different characters, or you learn that. So it's important to stay curious, to ask questions, and really, really be interested, truly interested, and stick to your own personality and your values. Because it's a long-term business. It's a people business, how I've known it. And therefore, of course, a network, building up a network inside your company and outside is essential and can be of great help as well. But you see everybody multiple times in life. Yeah. So it's important. Yeah. You know, how your first impression is and how you continue dealing with people. Faithfulness is important, trustfulness to me. And
And can I add something? I think it's also really important, as Tanja said, be yourself, and as a woman, act like a woman.
Yes.
Don't try to be a man.
Yeah.
Because it's a men-dominated industry, because I think this is diversity. If you can act and be and feel and behave like a woman, I think this is so important, because this is the value of diverse teams and diversity. So
I wish I would have gotten that advice almost 20 years ago. I definitely tried to blend in, if you will, right? Like tried to not make it so apparent that I was basically one woman in you know, my area of business. And so it's taken me a few years to get to that advice. So hence the pink blazer today. So.
I realized that I was about to mention that too, because it's exactly a realization I've only had in the last few years. Before, I would always be the one, okay, wear a dark suit as well, have your hair, you know, to a ponytail, whatever, because it's already clear you're different. So don't make it be even more obvious.
Right. And I have found, since I've switched that mindset to being more of my authentic self, being more true to who I am, more feminine, if you will, I've seen more business opportunities, more relationships, like people gravitate towards me more because I think they can truly understand that I'm being my authentic self, right? I'm not trying to fit into a mold. And so it's more interesting to them to do business with somebody that might not look exactly like them.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate both of you. Thank you for staying later, by the way. You know, again, the behind the scenes magic of podcasting. You both are after closing hours across the pond. So thank you so much for sticking around. And for those that are interested in connecting with Tanja or Steffi, they are available on LinkedIn. Please go visit Women4Metals as well. Check out their various channels on that front. They'll be posting more and more information, and it's going to be really incredible to watch that organization grow over the next several years. So thank you for coming on and sharing that.
Thank you so much for this great opportunity. Thank you.
Yes, and for being such a great supporter to Women4Metals as well. And let's see how we can grow it further, and when finally we will be able to be in the same room, even in person.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yes, one day it will happen. Hopefully sooner rather than later.